Kia ora, good morning, everyone. Welcome. We realise this is our temporary chambers here, so it's a long way back there. Yeah, and I'm yelling. So if you'd like to, if you can't hear, just bring your seats forward. But I'll tell the councillors and the staff members to talk as loud as we can. And so we will try that. Hello, testing. I talk into it a bit. Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, members of the public and staff, Madam CEO, Deputy Mayor and councillors. We've got a workshop today on the roundabout. And in front of us, we have Mr. Tony Hale, who's GM Community Infrastructure and Services. Sorry, Tony. And Mr. Roger Stokes, who's our roading manager. Nice to see you, gentlemen, and other members of the executive and members of the staff today, members of the press, and everyone else. We will get. How long have we got allowed for this? An hour. Okay. Right. Let's get into it. Okay. Tony.
Good morning, everybody. Obviously, workshop situation, and the reason we're having this workshop with you is that we can give you a bit more detail behind a paper that's coming to you towards the end of the month around the proposed roundabout along Lake Terrace that connects up Maunganamu Road and Maunganamu. Now, there's quite a lot of detail and there's a lot of history. So we really wanted to have the time to just go through some of those complexities, and obviously we've got some of the local residents here today, so that's really good to have been part of that process and that journey with some of the team. And how
are we going for hearing, guys? Yeah,
yeah,
it is on.
Yeah, mine's on. Yeah, mine's
on.
I would raise my voice considerably.
Yeah, and get it closer to you. Sorry. Sorry.
Okay, the purpose. I'll summarise what I said as best I can. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good. Basically, what I was saying was that it's quite a complex situation. There's quite a bit of detail. There's a lot of history around when these subdivisions were developed, some of those consents, and obviously subdivisions that have occurred since then. And we've done some conversation, some engagement with local residents. Obviously, several of them are in here today, which is great. So we've got quite a lot of slides, and there's quite a bit of detail, but we're going to talk through some of the pros and the cons, and some of the engineering background and the engineering reasons for a new roundabout, what that means. There are some supporting information as well, some surveys that we've received from local residents, as well as the safety that's been done by Corridor Solutions. So we've got some of our team here who are prepared to answer any of those questions that you may have as well. So like I said, the reason for the workshop is in preparation for council paper that's coming up around a roundabout on Lake Terrace. So I'm going to hand over to Roger now, and Roger's going to speak loudly, and if he doesn't, I'll kick him under the table. But certainly, please ask questions as we go. Like I said, fortunately, Roger's been around as the infrastructure manager, and prior to that in development team for many years in Taupō District Council. So he's got a really good understanding and knowledge of this particular location.
Very good. Morning, Roger.
Morning, Your Worship and councillors. Tony's given you the heads up as to what the purpose of why we're here, and I guess a lot of you already have been canvassed a little bit about it. I see there's been a few emails around, so you'll have your questions, but I'll work through it, and if something jumps up on my points as I go, please feel free to ask questions. So objective, as Tony's outlined, on the 29th of November, we're getting this an item is scheduled seeking a council resolution on whether to connect the Lakeside Terraces subdivision, which is accessed on Maunganamu Road, to the new Lake Terrace Maunganamu Drive roundabout being constructed by the Taupō developer next winter, in winter 2025. So this workshop's going to present a background to the resource consenting history, the factors for and against a connection, and recent consultation undertaken with the residents in the area.
Yeah, just to the slight correction there, that's October we're talking about, not November, okay? And previously we pushed this one, we removed the paper from the previous month in order to have some further conversations with local residents.
I was in Tonga until Monday afternoon, so this is a bit of a rush job. But anyway, okay. The location, just for those that aren't quite familiar, I've circled in yellow there up on the picture, the Lakeside Terraces subdivision, which is sandwiched neatly between Rainbow Point and Whareawaka. That was the Lakeside Terraces was completed as a subdivision in 2007, and houses have been built over the last 17 years. It's not fully built at the moment. The final number of residential sites will be 66, which is 65 in the original subdivision plus parcel land that council sold off and added on. So across the Lake Terrace at this point is a Naroto subdivision currently under development, which is this big area here right through to the top. That's going to eventually be about 750 sites. About half of the sites have been built on at the moment. Proposal, which this is taken from the Naroto, is plans done by the Naroto developer. So the requirement, the roundabout is a requirement of the publicly notified 2006 Naroto resource consent. And the Naroto consent conditions require them to form a 4-leg roundabout with a connection to Maunganamu Road at their cost once Maunganamu Drive had reached 2,000 vehicles per day. The threshold was reached this year in March when we've had about 2,100 average vehicles per day based on a survey done by Shield Consultants. So that's the plan there. You'll see that the Maunganamu Drive's down the bottom here. And
just to the chair. Could I just clarify?
Through me, please. Yeah, Councillor Campbell. This is, sorry, just for everyone's advantage, this is publicly recorded. The whole thing's being recorded as we speak. So, as I say, speak really loud and closely, please, Duncan, into your thing. Councillor Campbell.
Oh, yes. So just to clarify, 2006, so the assumption would have been that it was the state highway. That'd be correct back then. Yes. So the assumption that was around about, and the assumption was that it was going to be a state highway. And I delved into this a little bit years ago, and as far as I know, the 2,000 vehicles per day was an amendment made in 2011 or something. Yeah,
that's correct.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Sorry, just through the chair.
Councillor Park.
Thank you, Worship. In 2006, the ETA literally would have been nearly underway. So surely the foresight would have been that it was not going to be state highway.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was at the official opening in 2010, and you don't just build a state highway overnight.
I was involved in the consenting in both of these subdivisions, and that was very much in the forefront. NZTA knew they were on the way out. So at the moment, we couldn't have the roundabout while it was state highway. So it had to happen after it was handed over. In 2016, we took formal legal possession of the corridor.
Councillor Westerman.
Roger, with the survey done for the 2,000 vehicles, that could be a little misleading knowing how many trade vehicles are going to build within Naroto. Do you think that's, even though it's gone over the 2,000, do we think that's a relevant report?
The consent condition doesn't specify, it just says 2,000 vehicles per day, except there's a lot of trade vehicles at the moment going through there. But once those trade vehicles leave, there's going to be residents living in those houses that are being built, and it's not going back to below 2,000 vehicles per day now, because those buildings will keep happening for the next decade, I guess, and the residents will keep moving in. We've been monitoring it every 6 months, and we've just seen the trend relentlessly climb 100 by 100 over this period. So it's finally reached that point, and I don't see it dropping back beyond 2,000 vehicles now with the stage of development. In fact, as you know, that economic building activities continue to pace. in there. The section of Pukenamu Road affected, it's highlighted in, I'll read it. If Pukenamu Road was connected directly to the new roundabout as intended by the consents, the red section of Pukenamu Road would be a duplication, and our current, under the consents, was proposed for closure. So that would mean the southern giveaway intersection with Whairoka Road, where the curb and footpath extended across it, which is down the bottom of the red line. But there would be a driveway retained along the frontage of 1A Pukenamu Road, which is the section out identified in yellow. But about 250 metres of Pukenamu Road would have the curb and seal removed and the land returned to public open space. The concrete footpath and lighting would be retained, and there's been 150,000 provided through the long and budget in the LTP for this removal of the seal and returning the space to grass on that section. Here's a picture for folks. It's the southern end of Pukenamu Road, looking through the section. It's about the 250 metre section there that would be identified for closure if we continued with a 4-leg connection. This road was built by the Lakeside Terraces developer. It's 17 years old, and it's got a stormwater system down based on drilled soak holes lower down. So across this intersection, it would be closed. The curb would be extended across. The footpath would be extended across. And that would be grass or vegetation.
Councillor Park.
Yeah, just through the chair, being a total novice when it comes to traffic engineering and whatnot, Pukenamu Road is a cul-de-sac. Literally, it's closed at the other end. And so, if this was to become an arm of the roundabout, they're still going to have issues with people taking boats and whatnot down to the road where it's actually not appropriate at the end as for a turnaround bay or anything like that. Has that all been taken into consideration?
Yes, as a result of the submissions, that's been identified as one of the issues concerned that people inadvertently at the roundabout drive into Pukenamu Road with their boats or thinking they've got lake access there. As part of the agenda item coming up, there's a suggestion that we put a sign at the entrance to say no lake access, no boat ramp, no lake access, clearly, so that people don't do that inadvertent. They won't do it twice, but
follow-up question, Councillor Park.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. Just from my brain, being very novice at this sort of thing, how does it make sense to make a cul-de-sac, if you like, an arm of a roundabout? I just don't understand that.
Perhaps I'll go through the presentation a bit more, and we'll get into the pros and cons.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carry on, Roger.
View looking south along Pukenamu Road, this would be about where the roundabout, where the connection would go to the roundabout if it was connected. So that section, all this section you see down there, would be subject to closure, other than a driveway section to property 1A Pukenamu, which is just behind the lamppost on the right-hand side. It's sitting up here on an elevated site. We have consulted with the owner there about, met them on site about the possibilities. So the question comes at the roundabout question, 3 or 4 legs. The questions came to prominence after a public engagement meeting which was held on the 7th of March at Pukenamu Road, where residents of the Whairoka area were asked whether they had any other ideas for the use of the closed section of roadway. We thought, well, if we're going to have this, maybe this could be a skateboard area or cycle area, or perhaps the community might have some other area used for a hard standing area. There was a significant turnout, particularly from the Pukenamu Road residents there. There was some strong opinions put forward that they liked things the way they were, and they didn't see any need to connect and preferred not to connect. And their request was that council revisit the plan to connect Pukenamu Road. So hence this process really has come. I was there at the meeting, I spoke there and agreed that it was reasonable, and I was quite open to reconsidering the idea, doing the engineering case all over again, get the traffic assessment done, the economic assessment done, and give community a chance to engage, give us their reasons and thoughts, and present this decision to the council to actually make the decision rather than being an officer one to see whether we change tack.
Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is around the engagement with the Maunganamu residents on the other side there, because the roundabout to me seems as though it's going to benefit the right turning traffic heading to town the most. Do they want it? I'd like to know. Have they indicated that they would like the roundabout?
The roundabout is
I understand why.
Is a requirement of the Naroto consent. That came out of the traffic engineering assessments done at the original Naroto one, which when they looked at the 700 sites that they were going to get onto Lake Terrace, the traffic engineers identified the roundabout was the appropriate solution. So that's...
Sorry, if I could just get an answer regarding the Maunganamu residents. I see the second engagement round was specifically for Lakeside.
Yep.
What sort of, I haven't seen a lot of feedback from the other side of the road, and I'd really like to understand what their thoughts are on this as well.
The expectation by the resource consent is they are getting the roundabout anyway, so it's the question is a 3 or 4-legged roundabout. We have undertaken no engagement with directly on the subject of 3 or 4 questions, because the question was just...
They would presume they're getting it still, yeah.
Chair, we have not done any formal consultation with that side.
Thank you.
When
they have on all their limbs that they're getting a roundabout as part of the resource consent.
On the limbs.
I guess my question is around the fact that we're looking at changing it. Did we talk to them about that potential change, and what was the feedback? So the answer is we didn't have any. Right, okay, thank you.
Just a little bit of background as to why we've ended up with the layout as we did with effectively a temporary access planning there. This is a copy of the original 2003 Lakeside Terraces subdivision application, which was based on access off Chad Street. Chad Street's here, and with provision for future connection to what was State Highway 1 at the time there. So this was how it came through, but due to opposition from the Rainbow Point residents to the scheme, they didn't want access off through Rainbow Point and through Chad Street. The developer re-schemed the proposal to come, and consent was based on temporarily from Whaiwaka Road in the south. The decision went to appeal, and the final consent was granted by the Environment Court. So that actually went right to court, to a judge issued the thing. The Lakeside Terraces consent. The Environment Court decision addressed the key access matter in its written decision. There's the full text of it's in the agenda item, but this cutout piece says at that time, which I've noted, when Lake Terrace becomes a local road, we believe the link should be made to what will then be a local road, and that in the interim, the solution for which we opt, the connection to Whaiwaka Road, is to be regarded as somewhat temporary. So the decision required Lakeside Terraces Limited to make a cash contribution to TDC on completion of the subdivision, sufficient to provide for the costs of the direct connection as estimated at the time. This was received by council in 2007 as 133,000 plus GST and remains held in reserve to this day. The subsequent 2006 notified Naroto resource consent for the development of initially approximately 700 houses on the east side of Lake Terrace, addressed the Lakeside Terraces entrance approval with a proposal to site their own Maunganamu Drive entrance to match the Pokinamu Drive connection. And there was a TDC deed in place for the Naroto developer to provide them these funds after they've completed the roundabout. This is the Lakeside Terraces contribution. TDC is not providing any ratepayer funding towards the actual roundabout construction or linkage. That all the costs, which are considerably exceed, I'm advised, the actual funding provided will be is kept at just that contribution. So Naroto carries all the extra cost for that.
Through the chair.
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah. I was just about the cost, because it was estimated the cost back then, 2006 or whatever. I suppose, yes. Is there enough money in the kitty to actually build it without cost to the ratepayer? I mean, costs have gone up. Yeah.
The only cost council will be the closure of the section of Pokinamu Road. All costs for the connection of the road are payable by the Naroto developer whatever they may be.
Oh, really? I wasn't, I got the impression it was capped at a certain figure, but it's not.
Council, there's no liability for the costs of connection.
Okay.
So you're getting a free connection and factory opportunity.
Councillor Williamson.
Can you flip back the previous slide? Just a minute, thanks. When in 2006, obviously there wasn't any houses on Puke-Māori, but this section was the subdivision was actually developed. Would there been anything on the limbs that was for the roundabout was proposed?
Titles came out probably late 2007, I think, for Lakeside Terraces. I've been in and taken a random sample of some limbs on our digital system and looked at four just randomly from 2012 to 2022, and all of those limbs contained the full resource consent decision. And the Naroto ones on the other side contain the full resource consent decision for the Naroto subdivision.
Carry on.
So council undertook a confidential survey of the property owners accessing Maunganamu Road. It was confidential because there was some people wanted to be opportunity to have express their views freely. Owners were asked whether they supported the proposal or not and their reasons. The feedback gathered showed that a strong majority of residents did not want access to Lakeside Terraces to be provided via Lake Terrace and prefer to keep the current layout. So a total of 85% of Lakeside Terraces owners responded to the survey. Of these, 90% of the residents' submissions indicated they preferred the current road access arrangements. The objective of the survey was to understand the reasons why the residents objected to the connection and what measures might have been available to council to allay or mitigate these if the direct connection was still to proceed as originally intended there. And this full engagement report has already been provided to you and will be included in the agenda item for the 29th of October agenda, not November.
Councillor Shepherd.
So just for my benefit, for clarity, the sections at Lakeside had on their limb that a four-legged roundabout was proposed for that site. Is that correct?
They had a copy of the resource consent that was there, and that part of what I quoted from there was the notes about it being a temporary arrangement and all the conditions about they needed to pre-fund a connection after Lake Terrace was returned to council, that council could go ahead and form the entrance directly.
Right. Okay, so the answer is yes.
Through the chair, the answer there is that a connection to Lake Terrace.
Speak it to my phone, please.
Yeah. Through the chair, I think maybe just to clarify that the limb indicated that the Maunganamu will be temporary, but there will be ultimately a connection to Lake Terrace.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell and then Councillor Park.
Yeah, to clarify, my interpretation of this is that as far as the Naroto, we're calling it Naroto, we call it Naroto, as far as the Naroto side is concerned, whether they get a four-leg or a three-leg is immaterial to them because you would agree with that? Yeah.
I expect they would prefer a three-legged roundabout because it saves them money.
Oh, well, sorry, I was talking about the residents rather than the developer.
We haven't canvassed them, but everybody in Naroto who got a limb has got the understanding that there's going to be a roundabout after the direct vehicles hit 2,000 vehicles per day. So if that was to change, those people would be probably considered affected parties based on the expectation that they would get what they would probably consider an improved access onto Lake Terrace in the fullness of time.
Oh, no, sorry. For example, if the decision was made to do a three-leg roundabout, say, I would have thought you don't really need to consult with the Naroto people because that doesn't actually really affect them. Would you agree with that? Yeah.
We don't seem to consult.
Councillor Park, and then Councillor Greenslade.
Sorry, just through the chair, just for clarity. So when Maunganamu were consulted, the Lakeside were consulted, and it came back strongly in that the road remain as it is. What was the question?
I think that's probably provided the engagement report, but it says,
Okay,
but simply it was, do you prefer, do what, a three-legged roundabout or a four-legged roundabout? Can we connect direct or not?
okay, thank you.
Councillor Greenslade.
If there's a statement on a limb and council subsequently decides not to go ahead with that, can you just explain the process of what would happen? I'm sorry, Roger. That's a difficult
The
question.
resource consent has already been completed in 2007. The completion certificate was handed over. It's done and dusted. The consent's basically finished. So the developer is delisted off the company's register. They don't exist anymore. So we don't have a, it's really probably up to the councils and the community as to what we do going on here. So part of this process was to actually give those affected people a chance to have their say. And there have been some supporters who say that they do wish to have the connection provided there.
I suppose I'm going down the track of, would there be another public consultation process if this was to be decided by council? Not necessarily.
Not, that's not our plan at the moment.
No, okay, that's
This would
fine.
be the
Councillor Taylor.
So just following on from that, given that when this development occurred, a financial contribution was made with a specific end goal in mind. If we choose not to adopt that end goal, what liability or consequential impact does that have on council financially?
I'll put that question to our legal team, and we haven't had a direct answer. It's awkward because the developer has actually wound up their operation. So money was taken under the resource consent, but that would be a question that would have to be addressed. And I don't think council could assume that money is ours to spend in it for any other purpose. So unless it's probably a bit incidental to the decision, but that is a question that would come later as to what we do with that money that's held in reserve, because it was tagged for a specific purpose.
Yeah,
Taylor, follow up.
Yes, follow that. That's actually quite an important issue. The developer may not exist anymore and may have wound up the company, but those who bought the sections who are either originally or subsequently have a financial stake in this. Many of whom are sitting in the back of the room right now. So I guess before we make a decision at the next council meeting, it would be important for me to know where that sits. So if we make a decision this way or that way, there's going to be some consequential impacts on that. So we're going to come to these people and go, Merry Christmas.
That's identified in the item.
Seriously.
Yes, if we go to a three-leg roundabout, the question then remains as to what happens with the money, which we don't give to the Naroto developer. And the consent's been completed, done and dusted, sealed, got closed on the file. The developer's gone. It's a bit of an interesting question as to where it goes. And our team didn't have the direct answer without doing some research.
Councillor Shepherd.
So how can we be so certain that the developer is going to meet the additional costs of the roundabout? If they don't exist, they're off the company's register.
Through the chair, there's two opposite, different developments. There's Lakeside, there's Naroto. Naroto is still there at the moment, and they have
Naroto's okay,
they have an
right?
obligation under their consent.
Yep.
Obviously,
They
Lakeside.
still exist though.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just through the chair, valid point raised. That's noted. We'll get some further information and ready for council.
Can I just
Follow up, Deputy Mayor.
prolonging the agony, given that this has gone all the way to the Environment Court and the judge has made some very specific comments about this being temporary, are there any impacts legally relating to the Environment Court decision, particularly as you put the quote up there, this is a temporary connection to Whariwaka Road. Where does that leave us in that respect?
The affected people are the Lakeside Terrace's residents. They've requested that this be reviewed. We've gone out and we've made sure we've gone to every party, emailed directly out to them. The people have given their feedback here. It's on the limbs, so there are some people may have, well, they do have the expectation that the connection is going to be made, so that council needs to be aware of that there was a process, and as things stand at the moment, we can go ahead and build the roundabout with no further consenting. It is every arrangement's in place for it to happen as originally consented.
Okay, Councillor Truman.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, so if there is someone that's got it on their limb from Lakeside Terrace that does, bought an expectation of that, is there potential, could they take us to court because they wanted, they bought thinking that was going to happen? That was just like,
Sorry, I don't know what anyone can try and take us to court for any reason as to. That's one of the difficulties of this process. We're so far down the track that, and the request is actually to change direction. There's a lot of, as I said, trying to keep this workshop to a tight 1 hour is quite awkward because there's so many pieces to the puzzle and the string. I'll keep going. And
Have you got a quick one, Councillor Campbell? And then
on top of that, my interpretation of this is that if we decided to do a roundabout, 3 or 4 leg, then that's any hassles from Naroto people is not really an issue. But if we decided to cancel the roundabout altogether, that would open up that as a can of worms.
This council cannot. This is a requirement of the resource consent to build the roundabout. That's owned by Naroto Limited. Nothing in this council can change that. It's a legal document. So the question is not, do we get a roundabout? The question is it going to be 3 or 4 legs only?
Yeah, that's
okay. Carry on, Mr.
Reasons given for not connecting amongst the full survey is provided with all responses for you, but in summary, there was a loss of amenity due to increased traffic entering the subdivision, and comments that direct access with a 4-leg roundabout would encourage sightseers. The public may think that the direct lake access is available, and boat users may confuse it with the boat ramp access. A loss of feeling of exclusivity when entering. It was submitted that making the entrance road shorter and directly off Lake Terrace would reduce the distinctiveness of the development. It's obviously a high standard of amenity in there, and it's a beautiful subdivision. Cost. Some submitters see this as a waste of money. In some cases, they misunderstood that council was not paying for the roading work. Many submit that council's removal of existing road is a waste of funds, which is the $150,000 referred to, which is an LTP. Reasons continued. Access to the boat ramp. Accessing the boat ramp would be a bit longer in distance, about 100 metres for them to get to the Seacon Park boat ramp there, but it would require the boat trailers to be taken via Lake Terrace to Whaiwaka Road. So instead of driving straight to Whaiwaka Road, they have to come onto the roundabout and then back into Whaiwaka Road again. Some suggest that extra noise for houses are close by due to the roundabout, but that will probably apply whether it's with 3-leg or 4-leg, the roundabout's going in, so there's going to be that traffic activity is slowing down and accelerating. Some submitted that was lead to a loss of their property values. No information was provided on why that, specifically on why that might be, but that was one of the factors mentioned. And the theme that council should heed their request. They responded they are the users most affected by the permanent extra travel and time costs and should be able to choose to accept these. As infrastructure manager, I've had the report done by Corridor Solutions to actually do an economic and a safety analysis of the 2 options and as to what might be that to inform a decision and review to see whether that's still the best option from the engineering perspective. Obviously, council will consider the public side. I'm really focused a bit more on the engineering side and the infrastructure aspects of it. The key factor is you have that report that's included in your documentation. The economic value, based on the current travel with an 80% allowance, about 150 kilometres of extra travel is incurred by the community every single day accessing Naroto subdivision there. And the economic value to the community council environment of this it's 1.2 kilometres extra for every trip into town if we keep the existing arrangement rather than going to the connection. And that's been assessed by Corridor Solutions using NZTA criteria, pricing for pollution, time, environmental effects, costs and some sealing costs of the road at 3.25 million over 40 years, which is the economic assessment criteria used for NZTA for economic evaluation. So that's in 2024 dollars.
Councillor Shepherd, sorry.
Thank you. I note that I mean, it sounds like we have to build a roundabout. Is that what you're telling us? We actually have to build a roundabout? It's just a question of 3 or 4 lets?
Correct.
Okay. Given that this is 200 metres from the other roundabout, you're talking about the speed increasing to 70 kilometres per hour. I can't see that happening with 2 roundabouts so close together. And are you concerned about the congestion that might cause?
Yes, I assume you're talking between the Kokomia roundabout
Yeah.
and the Maunganamu one. No, we're not concerned with the congestion. The traffic volumes are not large on Lake Terrace at that end of town. Respectively, we're not getting material congestion. The gap between the 2 roundabouts between Kokomia and this one is probably something like 500 metres. It might 400. It's quite. There's certainly no potential interference between them each other. If that's what it's saying.
Councillor Campbell.
Oh yeah, just revisit that. I mean, I perceive that. I mean, we don't have to do the roundabout. Conceivably, we could drop it all together. But no. I'm just saying. If all the Naroto people were quite happy for us to drop the roundabout, then I'm sure it could be made to happen. But I suspect that not everyone will be happy with that outcome. I'm just putting it out there. I mean.
Legally, you can't.
We can't.
Well,
Legally.
Okay.
I'm not trying to push it down that direction. I'm just saying it's conceivably that is a possibility.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Because
I think, Councillor Campbell, if you don't mind, we're here to receive the information.
A roundabout would not happen. The consent's owned by Naroto. They would have to come along and make an application to us to vary their consent condition to not build a roundabout there. They would have to explain why the T intersection is the better solution than the roundabout. And bearing in mind that they proposed the roundabout, their own traffic engineers proposed the roundabout as the appropriate solution in the first place. And then we'd have to take consideration of all of the existing residents that are already built there, and they would be considered probably affected parties. So it'd be a publicly notified process. So to see whether the residents who got it on their limbs, so they'd have the opportunity to come along and say, I don't believe that would be a difficult process for Naroto, and probably expensive process to go through a publicly notified hearing. So I have no word from Naroto that they're just waiting for the decision. They'll go ahead and they're geared up to build the roundabout now, and that's.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a possibility. Not
for us.
No. Look, the second point I want to make about those costs. I mean, I looked at the numbers, and I mean, it must be acknowledged that 90% of that 3 million is on the Maunganamu users, vehicle emissions, petrol, travel time, all the rest. I mean, and the remaining, I think it was $4,000 a year on road renewals. That was the roughly $4,000 a year. I mean, I see how it was calculated, and but I was just interested because I extrapolated off the just figure of Tony gave me we got about 700, 800 kilometres of road in the district. And I'm just interested, it's a question for you, Tony, maybe. If we based on those figures provided, which I'm sure are reasonably accurate, it ends up being roughly $5 a year road renewal cost per square metre to maintain a sealed road. And that my rough count, that added up to something like 30 million a year on road renewals, which I suspect we don't do. To that one. We're behind in the road. We don't get it. We don't spend enough money on road.
Perhaps there's a question there you could answer later, Tony, as far as square metre and that sort of thing. I think.
Well, no, it's quite relevant because we're saying it's going to cost us this much over 40 years. Well, I'm suspecting that we don't spend nearly as much as we should be spending.
Well, for the chair, I guess these figures are provided on the topic in question.
Yeah.
And happy to have an offline conversation with you about more with you regionally.
Information later. If you carry on with the presentation, please.
The comment that Councillor Campbell is correct that most of the costs will fall on the users, the time cost, the vehicle running cost, the environmental cost of nitrous oxide, carbon emissions, and the road maintenance that fall on the community and on the council. What we're looking, this is effectively, I'm viewing this as a permanent decision. We'll get this for the next 100 years. So every day there's 150 kilometres of what is probably unnecessary vehicle running every day and indefinitely going on there. And that has a cost not only to the residents at the moment who may be happy to pay that, but it also locks every resident in the future into that situation of paying that additional cost.
Yep, I think we get that. Yep. Councillor Shepherd.
I note that Lakeside has a number of private roads that those residents pay for the maintenance of at any rate. Has it been discussed that Pukenamu Road could become a private road that they could undertake the maintenance on?
No.
Being supposed to be closed, though.
But yeah, I guess that, I think
Okay.
that answers my question.
None of the residents have suggested that as a proposal to me. I think that
Oh,
we
it's
pay
been
for all.
It has been suggested to me, so I wonder if it's worth looking at that.
That would incur all the operational costs of the road, the footpath, etc. Is all fall onto the residents there as a cost that they'd have to bear.
Okay, carry on with your presentation, Roger, please.
Safety Corridor Solutions has looked at the new roundabout for the Maunganamu Drive Lake Terrace. Is a significant overall safety improvement, particularly for the Naroto users, mainly for the Naroto users because they have far more numbers, over 10 times as many users there. The resident submissions identify indirect boat access as being a little bit more awkward for them coming out, so maybe a safety issue coming out there, but it would be going through the roundabout and through the intersection. So all other boat users that come from elsewhere go through the same intersections, and I don't have concerns as an engineer with the geometry and construction of those intersections. Removing Pukenamu Road from the Whaiwaka Road Lake Terrace giveaway intersection will remove about 10 to 15% of the traffic load on the T intersection at Whaiwaka Road, so it'll be permanent reduction by closing that off. Emergency services access has been identified by some as a shorter, quick, instead of having to do that, go south and then come in if they needed to get an ambulance or a fire brigade. There, it's just a small item. And just to note that the Lake Terrace would be increased in speed later to 70 k's an hour, probably 70 k an hour. We've got to go through all the government process yet, which will make the T intersections there a little bit less safe, because by putting a roundabout there, it will slow the speeds down and make access for people from Maunganamu and Pukenamu onto a slower environment rather than having to access onto a 70 k an hour environment potentially, which is where they access the moment at Whaiwaka Road to Lake Terrace.
Oh, just a quick question on that last slide. 10 to 15%. I just wonder if that was a rough shot estimate based on the number of houses down there, because I know a lot of them down that way, or Whaiwaka in general, sort of absentee landlord. I mean, is that based on an actual count or what? It's
based on a rough calculation of the number of houses there, considering there's holiday houses all through Whaiwaka subdivision and Henny Street and Narota and Lakeside Terrace. There's a lot of holiday houses all through the area. So yes, it's just an approximation based on number of houses. Thank you. The infrastructure case for connection continued. It avoids duplication of the public roadway. Having a parallel roadway alongside which we have to maintain means we can remove it. We don't have to. That offers no benefit having a road sort of 80 parallel road 80 metres away from another one. Returns the roadway to the public open space that used to be open space there before the developer cut it down and took the material out to form the footpath and lighting was proposed to remain. By removing the Pukenamu Road surface, we'd get rid of the stormwater maintenance costs of that, which aren't included in the economic cost. We have a system of about 8 soak holes, drilled soak holes with enviropods in there which need to be cleaned and maintained and renewed. They don't last forever, so we could delete all of those and just return it to grass vegetation. Continued 3. This is a one-off opportunity for the community, the council, to connect without road construction costs, because the developer is carrying all of the liability for that connection, physical work, beyond what we do to close our road. That's our issues. To do with this in the future as a standalone project would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least $500,000 in my estimate, because of the earthworks and things required. So I view this, once the developer's gone and so we say 3-leg or 4-leg, their obligation is complete. I've been advised by the planners that there is enough flexibility to go 3-leg or 4-leg. It's not a question for the concern for the Naroto resource consent. The Naroto are comfortable with us making that call. In fact, they probably prefer 3-leg because, as I said, it saves them money, it's costs. But
Councillor Shepherd.
it says to be the infrastructure manager's approval. Amenity improvements.
Roger. Councillor Shepherd.
So that just brings me back to Councillor Taylor's question earlier, which I sort of wasn't really satisfied that we got an answer for. Are there any legal implications given the Environment Court judgment if we leave Pukenamu Road as it is?
The only people that I could see would probably have case are the people on Lakeside Terraces who believed they were getting a connection and now it's not getting a connection. I haven't had any opinion as to whether they could take it. I guess anyone could try and take us to.
Anyone could. Tony. Mr. Hale.
And certainly I think it's something that we need to get a bit more information on, purely because there's some money that was set aside with the Lakeside development, with the understanding and a court ruling that a connection will be made with Lake Terrace. So I've heard that very clearly, that we need to get some more information for you for council meeting.
Yeah, well, we need to know, otherwise we can't consider a 3-leg.
Cool. Very good. I think Councillor Taylor requested that earlier, and I think we've got the message here. Thank you, Tony. Right. Roger.
Amenity came up in a number of the submissions, and at the moment the Pukenamu dry batters and trees are not in great shape after 17 years, and there's potential for a new entrance feature to be created. I've got some pictures here. The state of the Pukenamu Road batters, the trees have not done well in the compacted pumice, that they're covered in weeds of broom and blackberry. This will be the section of road that would be closed and potentially restored if a 4-legged roundabout goes ahead. And we've also, in response to the submissions about an entrance feature, Fraser, as our landscape architect, has drawn potential for residents to build a gateway entrance there. Would be quite agreeable to them building a wall, putting a nameplate there, doing some planting, etc. This wouldn't be, to be clear, this wouldn't be council funding for it. This would be a private thing if they wish to do it. But there's a request that they would like to see the amenity improved, and we agree that the current entrance way down there is not great. So this is suggested as in the proposed recommendation, if we did a 4-leg connection, that we enable or support the residents to come up with something to enhance the amenity of their site. The continued this restoring the lake view from Lake Terrace. One of the consent requirements was this bund that you can see built along the Lake Terrace there. This was required to prevent potential headlight conflict of 2 parallel roads by NZTA. Long-term residents of Taupo will remember that there was an expansive lake view that used to be available from Lake Terrace as you look across Second Park. There was a feature coming in, and some residents have expressed to me that they'd love to see that view restored and that sort of fairly unruly batter removed. We could, if the 4-leg roundabout goes, we could perhaps push that material down onto as part of the amenity down the bottom and restore a grass berm and the views across the lake. So it's just a minor feature, but it could be included in it.
Through the,
Councillor Campbell.
we could do that regardless of 3-leg or 4-leg, couldn't we?
We could.
Yeah.
The case case for the four-leg connection, where continues, it's consistent with the resource consent conditions, which we've already talked about extensively here. And it's consistent with the limbs, which is the note, all limbs for Lakeside Terrace and Naroto include copies of the resource consent, which identify the intention for a direct connection.
Hey,
Not part of the presentation.
Trout. Okay, I think that sort of, oh, is there one more? Wait, there's more? Yeah.
That's basically it. Yeah, I think that's probably why I've got to the end.
Thank you. Thank you. So just to clarify today is that, you know, we're not making a decision today. We're just, you know, it's information only. We'll be making the decision on the 25th, 29th October. So what I want to just ask the councillors now, have you got the final questions? I think we go away and consume all this information, and it's good that you've delved right into the background, which is really appreciated, Roger, in your work there to deliver this report. It's much appreciated. I'll just ask the councillors now, have you got any other final questions or clarification mainly of the presentation today? Councillor Park.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering, from the Naroto developer's perspective, when was the last sort of time that there was a conversation around the appetite for getting on with this project? I mean, I know that the resource consent says when it gets to a certain amount, but are the developers still on board and everything's still status quo and there's no desire to change anything?
The consent.
I'm sorry, I'm asking you to speak on behalf of someone else.
I can comment because I have been engaging with their representatives semi-regularly. The consent condition gave them 6 months to effect the roundabout construction after 2,000 vehicles per day came up. So they've been out actively getting the design work done. At the moment, after the meeting on March, and the request to reconsider it, we went back to them and said, look, can you please, maybe we've not constructed this winter. We want to go through this process with the community. They're relaxed about it. So I've got the arrangements and said, look, I've sent them a note to say, look, you can do it next winter. We need to go through this process to decide whether the community, we've changed direction with it, and the developer, the Naroto developer is comfortable with whatever direction we go. They will do whatever.
Councillor Campbell and then Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, my take at this point is that if this was a green fields development, a four-leg makes more sense. It's not green fields. It's been there for a time. The majority of residents don't want the four-leg. I think, irrespective, well, take into account the implied costs there, that's a much more significant factor that is being taken into consideration, obviously, because that's what we're having in this workshop. In fact, I think if it was correct me if I'm wrong, but if we were proposing a three-leg roundabout in the first place, there would be no workshop and there would be no consultation because there's no one really to consult about it. That would be correct, wouldn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. No.
Could you answer that, please?
No, I was just waiting for the question.
Oh, okay, sure.
Oh no, and just a question / comment. I mean, the Countdown roundabout was a three-leg roundabout. That wasn't designed, I know, because I looked at it at the time. That was not designed to a modern standard. I just want some indication that this one, whatever, will.
It's been through the process. It's been through the traffic audits, and that Kokami roundabout was approved as it is, and we're quite happy with the way it's functioning.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor, please.
I just have to point out that yes, no, I looked at that into some detail some time ago, and no, I wasn't happy that it was actually.
Works very well. Deputy Mayor, please.
Saying that because that happens to be my field of knowledge, and I did dive into that at the time. Yeah, well, that
Campbell,
turned to talk, I think.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So you've partially answered the question I was going to ask in terms of the timeline. So the building of a roundabout's triggered by the vehicle count, and there's a 6-month timeline to actually get on with that. My question is, how long can we delay? Should we need to delay further for additional information to assist in the decision making before we become part of a default and they can walk away? So are we at risk of that?
The consent condition hasn't been removed from them to build the roundabout. Because of the process, we've delayed it. We want construction to happen in winter because summer's a very busy time there. All the residents, the holiday houses are in process. So winter is the quiet time to do it. So we've said, look, build it next winter. They are okay with that. They're not objecting to it. Don't feel at any risk. Currently, there's an agreement between us.
No, that's
Yeah, through the chair, I think what we'll do is we'll get some clarity around some of those consent conditions and make sure, just find out what some of those risks might be, or might not be for that matter.
you know, I get that, and gentlemen's agreements are fine until someone pulls out the chapter and verse and says, you cross this date and we're out. And I don't want us to be in that position because that will then become untenable. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy. Any other questions or clarification? Councillor Greenslade.
And keep in mind, I'm not a Taupō elected councillor, so I'm not hugely au fait with the area. Is there any possibility of more development on the lakeside?
Not on the lakeside. That's all developable land is currently done, and lakeside terraces will never be any bigger than what it is at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Just following up on Councillor Taylor, Councillor Shepherdson point out earlier, sound like a crack record. In terms of actually process going forward, the legality going forward is so important. As public notified consent back in 2006 indicated, and irrespective of what any of I think, any of us think, very, very critical.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, just it said 29th of November. Is that wrong, or is it October?
It's an error.
Yeah, October. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I just think while we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's, I think if you provide the information of those counts, the counts that were done just past the threshold, I think providing that information as part of the report that's coming on the 29th, that would be useful to have that information thrown in there just to clarify, since we're covering things off. Does that sound reasonable?
We can specify the exact number.
Yeah. And we know accounted, and yeah, I think that would be useful. Because that is the lever. That is actually the only lever we have to make this happen anyway. So I think it's quite important to clarify that.
Okay, I'll draw this workshop to a close. I see there's a few hands up the back there. You're most welcome. There will be a public forum prior to the meeting, the actual meeting on the day. So if you'd like to come in.
Sent a list of questions and none of them have been addressed.
So I'll just clarify that. Have we got that list of questions?
Yeah, yeah.
There were 45, I think.
Yeah, there's quite a few questions that we have here.
Yeah. So do we want to address those questions now, or we're up to time. So perhaps we can do that prior to Councillor Taylor.
I've got Mr. Williams' questions open in front of me.
Anything there we haven't addressed?
I've
Asked a few of those.
spoken through them. Some of them actually have
Yeah.
been answered. In particular,
Asked a few of them, see?
has an assessment of residents in Maunganamu and surrounding streets been done to assess their views? Well, that's a no. Has the developer of Naroja been consulted on his views, and what are they? Investigation says, and so on. Or the developer, in fact, the developer has always gone ahead with concept plans. That kind of answers that. I'm just wondering. I know it's a workshop.
Yeah.
But we've asked people to submit questions. They've done so. Don't want to get too far out of the rules of workshops, but
Is something that
There's
we
a lot of
haven't,
people have gone to a lot of trouble. I wonder if there's something specific that Mr. Williams has got in terms of the questions.
So I believe
Yes.
that, I'm just going to ask Connie and Roger, apologies. So the intention was to ask the questions that were submitted for our presentation. That was the intention, so that be addressed through the presentation.
is there a particular one, Mr. Williams, that hasn't been addressed?
Yeah, well, the two of them. Firstly, if you're gonna put a roundabout, can it be a simpler roundabout? We've got one design. There are many different designs of roundabouts, and some of them are a hell of a lot simpler than others. And all we're talking about is one design. I think there's a lot of options, a lot of options with it, lots of ways to skin the cat. The other question is well, firstly, Roger says that only 10% of the cars turn right and go south. That is rubbish. We've actually counted, we've done a lot of counts for both Whakamaru and also for Maunganamu. At least 35% of the cars go south. We question whether the roundabout would be better off at Papamārearea. On the basis that's a much busier roundabout, and you can connect up to Harakeke Road relatively easily.
Okay, well, three there. Are they easy to answer now, or do you want to do some? We've addressed. Yeah, the quality of the roundabout will be what the New Zealand standards are and all that sort of thing is. As far as the roundabout's concerned, the second, would you put it at Whariwaka Road, the roundabouts?
We've got a.
We've got a resource consent.
Developers paying for one at Maunganamu. At free for, if we would build one at Whariwaka Road, that would be on the council to do. There are more houses will be accessing off Naroto, and more traffic at that point. So if you were to pick a spot, the Maunganamu Road would be the obvious one from a traffic engineering perspective based on demand and volumes.
Okay.
I'm just interested, comment on that. That would probably be true just looking at the number of houses, but I mean, a lot of people go to Whariwaka Point as a summer place. I suspect that Whariwaka Road might have the more traffic, at least sometimes of the year. I mean, that's my hunch anyway.
Naroto eventually will have many more houses, and they'll be on an annual basis. They'll be fully more occupied houses, so that the volumes will be much greater. I should, Mr. Williams' question about the numbers going south. And the economic analysis is based on 80% of vehicles travelling towards town, not 90%. Our observations indicate that's probably conservative. Based on we've taken observations as well of the number of vehicles coming through. And seen that 80% was taken as a conservative figure of vehicles travelling towards town or Kokamea.
So Taylor?
I'm just again refreshing my memory on the questions posed to us. So there's been a bit of discussion in the paper and raised in the questions supplied around the Whariwaka Road Lake Terrace intersection. So if Whakamaru Road was closed and a four-legged roundabout was put in, that just takes away all of that traffic straight away. If we left it open with a three-legged roundabout, that the risk at Whariwaka remains. It's a bit of a, how do I put this? It's a theoretical question. Given that risk would then remain, does that assist in bringing forward any proposal to put an additional roundabout there in the future, given that risk would need mitigating further down the track?
We have a priority list for intersections to be upgraded, and that intersection does not figure compared to many other higher demand ones that we have in the district.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, I'll draw the workshop to a close. Thank you very much for everyone coming today. We look forward to the debate on the 25th of October, 29th, sorry, of October, not November. And if any councillors want to go away and seek clarification on any of the matters arise today, please, Madam CEO, if that's okay, if your officers are available for that, that conversation. And we will come back and make the decision on that day. But thank you very much for everyone coming today. The workshop is closed. The recording can now stop. Thank you.